That's a really small picture of me. Hey, there we go. That's better. Good evening, everybody. It's Chris here from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Muir, Alberta. I've had a busy week, like a really busy week, and a lot of the busyness has been just watching stuff that's going on. My Facebook feed has been largely dominated by content from Berta Proud Dad, who's doing a fantastic job digging into some current events and giving a conservative perspective on the lunacy that we see going on around us. If you haven't already, I would totally recommend that you head over to Berta Proud Dad on Facebook and follow, and share his stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. And as I'm going to do, probably good idea to order one of his shirts or hats or toques or sweaters or something like that, so that you can wear your opinion on your sleeve. I think that's a great idea as well. So in the midst of watching all this stuff, there's been many times where I've wanted to sit down and do a live, or just whip out my phone and do one in a parking lot somewhere when I hear about something. But you know what happens every time? I open Facebook, there's something from Berta Proud Dad, and I end up watching it and getting distracted. And then I end up just learning more about different things, looking into some of the things he's saying. So now that it's almost my bedtime on a Monday night, I figured it's a great time to just wrap up a few of the things that we've heard and seen over the last week. Now, of course, the biggest thing was my little dog there eating tomatoes off my tomato plants. They're right there. We brought him in for the winter, and now the dog eats the tomatoes off the vines. That is the biggest breaking news story of the day. Good night. Just kidding. The teacher strike. I think that's one of the biggest things that we're watching unfold in Alberta right now. And it's not just the strike in general. This is different. The periods between 2020 and 2023, they got a lot of people to start paying attention to things and asking questions that they wouldn't otherwise have asked. And they're asking a lot of questions, and they're really paying attention, and people are really digging into what's going on. So in a nutshell, the Alberta teachers are on strike. They feel their classroom sizes, their class sizes are too big. They want more money. They want free COVID vaccinations. I don't know why we want to kill teachers, but that's what they're asking for. What else do they want? There was something else. They wanted more teachers and help with children who are, I guess the term is coded. So children with behavioral issues that require more attention than a regular non-coded child. Generally, when I was a kid, these kids they would have a specific room with specific people to deal with these specific issues, so that the rest of the class could get their things done. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. The NDP and the ATA, who, yes, are absolutely in bed together. I think the two of them probably go through that A to Z of sex book that they were that they wanted to put in libraries for our children to read so badly. I think they go through those books and try out those things with each other. That's how much in bed they are with each other. The ATA says it's a non-partisan group for teachers. And specifically, so if in case you don't know, the ATA, the Alberta Teachers Association, is the teachers union to represent teachers, but they are also the regulatory body that the professional association that deals with all things teachers. I think that's a huge conflict of interest. I believe our premier does too, and you probably do too, as long as you bother to look into it and see what it's about. It was such a big conflict of interest that in 2023, the provincial government actually stripped the ATA of their disciplinary powers, because at that time they were judge, jury, and executioner for the teachers. And it was compelled by legislation that the teachers had to be part of that union to teach in the public school system. So it's a big debacle. Anyway, the NDP and the ATA are certainly in bed together. But I do want to point out that under the Jason Kenney government, the ATA was accused of being in bed with the UCP government. Isn't that interesting? There was some talk about some leaked emails, backroom deals where people were getting guarantees of higher salaries, or in some cases, they were getting guarantees that minimum wage wouldn't be raised, things like that, in exchange for support. So this isn't just that the ATA is partisan towards the NDP. They're basically a sell your soul to the highest bidder, and they're going to do whatever they can to make themselves more powerful and get some more money. That's a big problem. Berta Proud Dad posted some stuff on his Facebook page, and he showed, actually no, it was Berta Proud Mom. She showed some pictures of like scans of the ATA newsletter, and guess what it was full of? NDP propaganda. There was bios and stuff on a bunch of NDP candidates talking about how they're going to make everything better for teachers. They're obviously pushing these things, even though they're not supposed to. Berta Proud Dad mentioned and did a post or a little live stream about exposing the ATA donating $1.1 million or otherwise funneling it into the NDP. Somehow, $1.1 million of union due money to support political campaigns. So this is, it's complete garbage. And you can see it with what's coming out of lying Naheed Nenshi's mouth right now. They're using this whole thing as a means to chip away at support for our current United Conservative government. Now, I don't agree with everything the UCP does. I'm actually quite pissed that even though the Premier said and apologized for the unvaccinated in Alberta being the most discriminated group she's seen in her lifetime, they were busted. They got busted implementing the mandates and restrictions illegally, and people like me and many others went to jail because they pushed back against those restrictions. And now it's come out that the average loss for a small business in Alberta because of what the government did was $186,000. So I'm the lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit being run by Jeff Rath and Associates, and they're fighting me. The government's fighting me. They're they could settle this and remedy the businesses that they damaged. They're not doing it. Instead, they're dragging it through court and spending more taxpayer money, even though every single MLA I've met, I can't think of one that hasn't, has said they hope I win. Every single MLA that I've talked to said what was done was wrong. They were supporting me the whole time. They just couldn't say anything. And now here I am, my head on the public chopping block again, standing up for small businesses. As I said I would do, I said I wasn't going to stop until there was some accountability. And they're dragging it on. And yeah, anyway, that's beside the point right now. That's a whole nother conversation. What I'm getting at is what you're being made to feel and believe via the mainstream media, legacy media, and political groups that desire power is not the truth. They're telling you that the UCP is responsible for all these bad things that happened in classrooms. They're telling you that there's 47 kids in a class. And the issue is there's a little bit of truth mixed in with some lies to create a narrative that makes you feel something and lash out at the current government. And it's working because people are stupid, myself included, when it comes to these things. You have to actually be willing to stop your emotion in its tracks, look at the facts and make your own decision, and then have an emotional response, because the people that are telling you and spoon feeding you the propaganda, they have a planned emotional response that they want to see from you. And 90% of the time we fall for it. So they say that class sizes are way too big and teachers are overworked. I imagine that is probably the case. Teachers certainly have a very difficult job. It was a little bit easier, I think, when I was a kid, which is a long time ago. And on that note, I actually just started blogging again. I wrote another blog after I listened to a Offspring song last night, thinking about my life and my age and those types of things. And you can find that at www.whistlestoptruckstop.ca. Please check them out. Let me know what you think. And if you like the way I'm writing, please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, but when I write something, you'll get a notification. Where were we? Age, kids. Yes. So teachers have a tough job and they deserve to be paid well. But did you know that the teachers in Alberta are paid among the highest in Canada? Did you know that? First year starts at something like 69,000, which is like a livable income. It's not, you're certainly not going to be buying designer clothes, not in this economy. But it tops out at $120,000 a year with 90 sick days. 90. When I first read that 90 sick days, I was flabbergasted. Why in the world would they have that? And then I remembered that teachers basically live in a petri dish that is a school because kids are always sick. You know, they got boogers are all over the place. They don't wash their hands properly. And of course, teachers are going to get sick. But then I dug into the stats and it looks like pre-COVID, teachers were taking about 7 to 9 sick days a year on average. Mind you, after COVID, once everybody had been injected with things that aren't necessary and seem to be doing damage, they're taking 50% more sick days. So I can see that a teacher might need a lot of sick days working with, the little booger-ridden kids or whatever. But 90 days, 90, that's 3 months. 3 months of a 10-month work year. 5 months a year off, $120,000 a year, full pension, weight of the union behind you, all sorts of good things. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying teachers don't deserve good pay. They absolutely do deserve good pay. What I'm telling you is that teachers are paid well right now. Now, getting into class sizes, I dug into this a little bit too. Now this is all off the top of my head, so please, if I'm wrong, you feel free to grok me. I don't know if that sounds really bad. Whatever. Feel free to grok me and ask Grok how many kids are in Alberta, those types of things, and you can fact check me. Put it in the comments and I'll watch for it and recognize it if I'm wrong. There's something like 740,000 students in the province of Alberta, roughly. I will point out that I think we gained since 2022 40,000 new students, and 85% of those are new Albertans, whether they're from another part of Canada or another part of the world. But it's not Albertans having babies, it's people coming into the province. This is a whole other story. The ATA lists their total members at 51,000 members. Those include associates, non-paying members, students, and other. It appears to me that there are roughly 35,000 or so teachers. And again, this is all off the top of my head. Please feel free to fact check. If you average that out, and the Premier pointed this out in a live stream she did, that works out to an average class size of around 21 children. The narrative is this number of 47. Well, where are we finding 47 children in a classroom? It's in the cities. It's in Edmonton. It's in Calgary. It's in Red Deer sometimes. The places where the federal government is generally bringing new people. And they can't keep up. They can't keep up. But on the other hand, there are some schools, just a few miles from the cities that are so severely underused that they're under threat of closing. The school in Muir, which is now Living Truth Christian School, was closed, I believe, before I moved here. It was closed in 2007 or 6, maybe something like that. An entrepreneur from town bought the entire property because he didn't want to see the school bulldozed, and managed it for a couple years before they started a charter school, which became Living Truth Christian School. So the province abandoned the school in Muir. A group of people got together, formed a charter school, and opened a school. And they went through that whole period where the NDP pulled their funding. They made it work. Parents really dug deep and made it work for the kids. But at the time, there was not very many kids. I remember the first year, I think there was 12 children in that school. Now it's like 150. And just really quickly, if you bother to look at what's going on in public schools right now and the outcomes with grades, behavior, those types of things in public school system, and then you put that side by side with charter and independent schools, it's night and day. And it's no wonder why parents are pulling their children out of public schools and putting them into charter or independent schools. For instance, I took one of my kids to the Alex Mack School, which is in a rural community, and walked into the homeroom on the Meet the Teachers Day, and the entire perimeter of the classroom was plastered with pride flags. Why? Why is that the most prominent thing on display? I went to an event in Slave Lake, basketball game, and I walked past the trophy case on my way to the gymnasium, thinking, oh, I bet you these kids love getting trophies and putting them on there, and then they can come back years later and see that they were, won this trophy, their name's on it, and be proud of that. No trophies. You know what's in there? Gender spectrum, sex spectrum, that type of thing. Like visuals saying, you are whatever you feel like you are. No trophies, no nothing. So it's no wonder why children are being pulled out of public school system and going into independent. So the average class size is about 21 kids. There are classes in the cities that are overfull, and those teachers have to work especially hard. But there's more to it. Well, besides the underused schools that are actually under threat of closure because there's not enough children in them, not very far from these public schools that are overcrowded. The other part of this is, and this is something that teachers and the ATA have brought up from day one, is the teachers have to deal with more behavioral issues. Now, when I was a kid, there was less behavioral issues because if we behaved poorly, the teacher would probably grab us by our ear and drag us to the office, and that freaking hurt. And we'd sit in the office. Maybe our parents would have to come pick us up. Maybe they'd pick us up after school. And when I got home, the behavioral issue was dealt with swiftly. And I didn't misbehave again, or at least for a little while. Now, we have students spitting on teachers. We have students swearing at teachers. We have students hitting teachers. And the teachers can't do anything. They have de-escalation training. So they de-escalate these kids, and somehow this is going to make everything better. It's not. But you dig a little bit deeper, as Berta Proud Dad did, and you'll find that we used to have classrooms that were specifically geared towards kids with behavioral issues, which we see a lot more of nowadays. Strange thing. I'm not sure exactly why. I mean, I heard some rumor in the United States that we're looking into this and trying to make some changes to make America's kids healthy again. Canada doesn't really care about that. We just keep doing the same things and slapping band-aids on it. But, what do I know? I'm just a burger flipper. Anyway, those kids had specialized classrooms with the attention that they needed, the resources they needed. And the teachers, the regular teachers with the classrooms with children that were behaving, they could get their work done, do their thing. Well, what happened was the PC government actually did a pilot project to see if, in the name of inclusiveness, if we could just put all those kids in the same class, see how it would go. So they tried it. Wasn't working very good. The outcomes were not good, and the program was going to be scrapped. But then something interesting happened. People got really, really pissed off at the PC government and the bullshit that they were doing and the corruption that they were seeing and the entitlement that they were seeing from people like Thomas Lukasik. Uh-oh, my girlfriend's calling and I'm going to screen the call. I'm going to be in big trouble. Oh, well, maybe she's watching. They lost an election to the NDP. When the NDP came in, they did some absolutely harebrained things. They destroyed this province. Well, they would have destroyed this province if Albertans weren't so resilient. They canceled, or they phased out our coal plants early, cost the province $1.5 billion. They implemented that pilot study in schools full time without any data to back up doing it in the name of inclusiveness. And there started the battles that our teachers are facing today. Increased immigration, not even just increased, unchecked immigration. Behavioral issues upon behavioral issues slammed in regular classrooms. And the teachers do not have a fun job sometimes. And all of these things together are what contributed to people like me choosing to put their children in independent schools, even though it costs me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars per year. I don't have new cars. I don't dress particularly expensive. I don't have fancy things. I live in a house that was built in 1917. And I choose to, instead of spending $10,000 a year on car payments and extra insurance, I spend $7,000 extra a year so that my son can get a good education. And it's a fantastic school. Absolutely fantastic. But you know, the thing about independent and charter schools, they're not actually private schools. They are open to the public, just like a university, but there is admission criteria, just like a university. The teachers that work there are not part of the Alberta Teachers Association. They do not pay union dues. The teachers at the school that I send my son to, they are responsible to the board of directors and the members of the society that runs the school. They're accountable. So if, as a parent, I have a problem with what is going on in my school, I can take it to the board, and the board can elevate it, and then there can be action. Kind of like the way it works with the government, only it's a lot easier to get things done because it's a much smaller community. It's very difficult to get anything done in the public school system in that way, because you have to go through, committees, the school board, get to the minister, then it maybe hits the ledge floor, and then they debate it. And 10 years later, when your kids are all out of school, they change something. So those teachers aren't part of the union. There's 7,000, is it 7,000, 7,000 or 7,100? 7,000-ish teachers that teach at independent and charter schools in Alberta right now. The union dues for the ATA, the Alberta Teachers Association, are around $1,400 per year. So if you do the math, you're looking at over $9 million of extra revenue that the Alberta Teachers Association stands to recoup if the petition for a referendum that says, do you agree that public funding should not fund private, or public tax money should not fund private schools in Alberta, if it goes and the government pays attention to it? It's a $9 million question, actually $9.2 million question, but who's counting? Certainly not the school boards, because you should see their budgets and expenses. So we have so many things going on. The teachers are striking. They say they want more money. They want classroom caps. The government says we're not going to cap classrooms because that means that you're going to have to tell students that they can't go to school, and we can't do that. The ATA is saying that the government doesn't care and they're trying to hide it. That's not the case at all. The ATA is focusing on a small percentage of schools in Alberta that have classrooms that are 47. They're using that to try and make it seem like all classes are like that. It's not the case. They're saying the teachers need more money. No, they don't. I'm sorry, they don't. Over $100,000 plus 90 sick days, plus pension, plus benefits, plus free COVID vaccinations. Wow, I bet you there's like eight teachers still getting those. They have a pretty good deal. Not saying that they don't deserve it at all, but the ATA is using that talking point as a way to hold families, students, and teachers hostage. The ATA collected between, now this is tough to find out, but this is an estimation, between $60 and $72 million or so in revenue last year. Do you know how much they're paying the teachers for strike pay? Zero. Nothing. Nothing. Where does that money go? Lobbying, legal stuff, training seminars, flyers that promote NDP political candidates, those types of things. They also set aside $12 million out of their special emergency fund, and they created something called the Defense and Advocacy Fund back in 2023, because the provincial government said that unions couldn't contribute to political parties anymore. So instead of just being like, okay, we're not going to contribute to political parties, their NDP buddies probably were like, whoa, we need that money because nobody actually likes us and nobody buys members and nobody supports us anymore. The only way we're going to get money and ever get any power is if the unions give us money. So let's figure it out. So they took that $12 million, they started this fund, and the fund is earning interest every year. Last year, they earned $344,000 in interest, and they used that interest money as a way to fund parallel campaigns running basically word for word with campaigns that the NDP was running during election time to try and support their candidates. So if you wonder why you heard anti-UCP or pro-NDP propaganda on the radio stations all the time, why social media was flooded with paid ads, it's because groups like that were doing that. And, whatever, if the union wants to support a particular party, that's fine, but all teachers aren't NDP cronies. There's a lot of conservative teachers. They don't all believe in those things, but they're compelled by law to pay those things and have their money used to run campaigns that are contrary to their values. That is unfair. And then if they say anything about it, if they make a fuss about it, oh, well, that union is also their professional association. And what happens when professionals speak out against the status quo that the professional association is pushing? Do you remember what happened to doctors and lawyers during COVID? Do you remember what happened to doctors that said, no, this isn't science. We're supposed to do no harm. We're supposed to treat our patients. They're doing it in other countries successfully. We're going to do it here. You remember what happened? They persecuted, slandered, libeled them to the point where they had to move out of the country, some of them, their professional association. Same thing happens with teachers. Same thing happens with nurses. We certainly need some reform in those areas. There should be no professional association in Alberta that is also the union that is supporting the conditions of those professionals in their workplace. Ever. Shouldn't happen. Again, that's an entire another podcast and way too long to get into now. So this whole ATA thing is a complete mess. But if you zoom out and you bother to pay attention and you set your emotions aside and you realize that you can actually stand with the teachers and for the teachers, but you can do it for the right reasons, you'll see a way different picture than what you're being presented by Naheed Nenshi, the mainstream media, and the ATA. It's all about the Benjamins, baby. $9.2 million. There's 9.2 million reasons why the ATA is pushing to have all public funding for charter and independent schools stopped in Alberta. It's not to the benefit of the taxpayer. It's not to the benefit of the student or the teacher, because the outcomes are better in charter and independent schools. They cost the taxpayer less because the Alberta government only pays 75% of what they pay for a public school student. The public school student amount is $13,400 or so. Again, please fact check me on that. The Alberta government pays 75% of that for my child. I pay the difference. So the taxpayer saves an immediate 25% rate there. The teachers are happy because they can teach in a school that's aligned with their values. They don't have to tell children that there's a gender spectrum if they don't want to, or if it doesn't align with their religious beliefs. They don't have to tell children or keep secrets from the parents of the children because the professional association says so. They can choose where to work that aligns with their values, and they don't have to pay those union dues, which is also nice. Speaking of union dues, let's move on a little bit to, I said we should zoom out and stand with the teachers by looking at the broader perspective. Let's talk about school boards for a minute. When I started talking about this last week, I got a bunch of messages from people talking about stuff that was happening on their school boards. One person told me about a superintendent in the Battle River School Division who a week or 2 weeks before the strike had been in Germany recruiting international students. And I thought, that's really weird. Why would we recruit international students if our classrooms are too full right now? That makes no sense. And someone chirped up online and said, well, it's because the international students pay like $11,000 a year to come here instead of the $6,000 that the government pays. So they actually bring money in. No, they don't. If they pay $11,000, they're shorting the system by $2,000. But you know what they do? If they bring international students that have really, really high scores, it changes the apparent outcome of the public school system in Alberta. It makes it look better. There's those international whiz kids that come in, and do school here, they contribute to the overall optics of the system. But who knows? Maybe that's just a coincidence. So we have superintendents doing this. And then I thought, well, it's probably just a limited thing. So I dug in. I went and looked at a couple other school districts. And what I found was this is a very common thing. Superintendents of school divisions, school districts in Alberta are traveling abroad 2, 3, 4 times a year sometimes. All expense paid trips. Tokyo, Germany, South Africa, all over the place. Italy. There's one, I found hotel receipts and stuff from Milan. Jet setting in the name of Alberta public education. The total expense for the office of the superintendent in Battle River in 2023, I didn't have the 2024 numbers, was $671,000. The superintendent makes around $271,000, and they had a $72,000 expense account. Who's standing for the teachers? And this isn't an isolated thing. You can look at your school district, their expenses are all posted publicly. Look what they're doing. Look what they're spending their money on. If they go and they buy a latte, they expense it and the taxpayer pays for it. If they drive 9 kilometers across town to visit a school, they charge you for that. If they download the Grammarly app and put it on their phone, they expense that and you pay for that as well. Isn't that weird? Educators downloading Grammarly. So maybe it's a learning tool. I don't know. It actually reminds me of the final scene in The Animal Farm by George Orwell, where after the animals take over the farm and they start working with each other to each other's benefit, they are cold and starving outside, and they look in the window and they see the pigs dressed up in human clothes dining at the table with the humans, and they can't tell the difference between the two anymore. So we have upper management and the elite of our Alberta education system spending hundreds of thousands of dollars while teachers don't have enough EAs to manage children with behavioral issues in their classrooms. Is it really the fault of the UCP government? Or is this one of those situations where you peel back the onion a little bit to get rid of the bad stuff on the outside, and you find it's rotten right to the core? You find out that there's a bloated, parasitic bureaucracy behind the government that the government has to actually appease, otherwise they'll just topple them by doing things like mobilizing a labor union with hundreds of millions of dollars to throw at political campaigns. It's rotten. And you're being made to think it's Danielle Smith's fault. Now, there's a lot of things that are Danielle Smith's fault. That's kind of what she signed on to or signed up for when she ran for premier. But this isn't one of them. We're not going to fix this problem by throwing a few $100 million or a few $1 billion at the education system. If we do that, those parasites that live lavish lives and fly all over the world on your dime are just going to get more. The ATA is going to get $9 million some odd $1,000 a year if they're successful in stopping the Alberta government from supporting independent school, which is school choice, by the way. So when you look at who's benefiting from these things, it actually explains why the deals have been turned down, even though they were good for the teachers. They offered teachers more money. They offered to hire 3,000 more teachers, which would have brought the average class size down to 17. And they rejected it. It's not because it's about the teachers. They're not standing with the teachers. They're not standing with the students. They're using the teachers and they're using the students as political pawns in their power play game so that they can benefit more, so they can access more of the tax trough, $9 million more of the tax trough. And we really got to start paying attention to these things. We have to stop looking at these problems as a NDP or a UCP issue, because it's not. Both of them will use these things to politicize, to win power over their opponent. So it's up to us to cut through the fat and find out what the meat of the situation is. That's what we have to do. And Berta Proud Dad has really done a good job of that, and Berta Proud Mom. So again, if you're just joining us recently, I'm not an advertiser for other podcasters or influencers, but go follow the guy. You want information on this stuff? He's got it, and he's doing a fantastic job. And some of the stuff you're going to see there about what's going on behind the scenes with Alberta education, it's going to blow your mind. But we got to start doing that, because that's the only way we can make good decisions. Democracy only works if we know what to vote for, right? There's a lot of other stuff I wanted to talk about. The Forever Canadian petition. Berta Proud Dad, again, just busted them, or somebody did and sent them the information, busted them collecting signatures for their petition for the referendum question, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada, at polling booths for municipal elections. That's a big no-no. There's lots of big no-nos going on with that campaign. For instance, I've had people come to me and share with me the conversations they've had with some of the canvassers. And they're being led to believe that if they don't sign that petition, that they're going to lose their pension and become a state. Neither of those things are true. Neither of them. That's another thing. Last week, I spoke at 2 Alberta Prosperity Project events, one in Edmonton, excellent turnout, one in Manning, way up north, again, excellent turnout. And I speak on behalf of the Alberta Prosperity Project quite frequently. I've written essays, I've done speeches, I've been interviewed about it. I'm very knowledgeable on the subject. And what those canvassers are telling people is complete BS, 100%. But they're doing it anyway. And I have to give them a little bit of credit, because what Thomas Lukaszuk has done, Thomas Lukaszuk, ex-deputy premier of Alberta, involved in many scandals, expense account stuff, blah, blah, blah. CEO of a Sharia compliant bank in Canada, first one. Good for him. He's an entrepreneur. It was a niche market, makes a lot of money at it. He mobilized thousands of people and convinced them to go where people are and spread misinformation in order to prevent Alberta from becoming prosperous. Now, I don't know if you understand the magnitude of that. To motivate and mobilize that many people to do this is not a small feat. The Alberta Prosperity Project has dozens of volunteers who've been working at this for like 3 or 4 years, thousands of volunteers of people that are willing to do the legwork. And it's not easy to mobilize that many people. But he did that. It's not cheap either, but he funded it somehow. I'm not sure. I guess someday maybe we'll find out what's really behind that. But what I can tell you for sure is that the people that benefit from the status quo, that benefit from the inequity of Alberta within Confederation, the people that benefit from the current legal framework that we reside in, they don't want anything to change. And the people that benefit and prosper under the tyranny of Ottawa, they prosper huge. Like, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases. Look at all the scandals. Look at our current prime minister and his connections with business that's, raking in money hand over fist. Oftentimes due to his political appointment. So Lukaszuk did something right. But that brings up another point. We need to do something as well. This weekend, we have a independence rally on the steps of the Edmonton Legislature. Yes, the Legislature building is in Edmonton. For those of you that asked, where are we going? Which town? It's at the Legislature building. The provincial legislature is in Edmonton, the capital of Alberta. October 25th, I should bring it up. Where is it here? I'm just going to share this page. Now, this is a little bit difficult for me because one of my monitors isn't working, so I can only do it on one screen, which means I can't see what's going on when I share the screen. But I'm going to do it anyways because that's fun, right? So here it is. Wait, can you see it? No, can you see it? No. There it is. I Am Alberta Rally, Saturday, October 25th at the Alberta Legislature in Edmonton. This is being spearheaded by the Alberta Prosperity Project, and they've done something awesome, which I just noticed. Actually, I knew about this, but I just saw it in print, so it really hit home. Check this out. They've set up buses. Grand Prairie to Edmonton, Medicine Hat to Edmonton, Okotoks, Fort McMurray, St. Albert, Calgary, Red Deer, Bonnyville, Drayton Valley. They have buses arranged from all over the place. You can go to the website, www. This is NB, so Nation Builder, nb.albertaprosperity.com /_ I am Alberta _ rally. It's up here in the bar. Can you see that? I'll copy and paste it. Actually, if you're any of you folks from the Alberta Prosperity Project, if you're watching, please put the link in the comments and you folks can watch that. Anyway, you can get a ticket, take the bus, which might be a lot easier because Edmonton, there's not a lot of parking there. Well, there is a lot of parking there, but it sucks to have to park. So why not just hop on the bus and take it easy? And here's the link in the comments. There you go. The purpose of this rally is to show the provincial government that we are done waiting for them and we are done waiting for Mark Carney, just like we were done waiting for Justin Trudeau. We're done waiting for Stephen Harper. We were done waiting for the revival that was the Reform Party. We're done waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. The provincial government has shown that they are largely ineffective at securing any major change for this province. Danielle Smith has a list of things that she demanded Mark Carney fix. And if he didn't fix, it was going to result in it would be a threat to national unity. Well, she's right. And it's happening. National unity is under threat, not because of what Mark Carney did or is doing or isn't doing, but because we never really had any national unity. If you want to learn more about this, again, on my blog, www.whistlestoptruckstop.ca, I'm actually going to try and bring that up here. I wrote an essay about this, and I tried to give as much historical context, the rationale for independence, the merits of independence, and then I went and I took the challenges or the negative things people say about, where is it here? The negative things people say about Alberta independence, and I rebutted them. And I told you why all of these things that people challenge Alberta independence with are actually reasons why we need to be independent. For instance, let me scroll down here. The landlock argument, I deal with that. Currency, I deal with that. Indigenous rights, I deal with that. All sorts of things. And it's right here. Alberta independence, necessary and inevitable. It's quite long. It's like 30,000 words, probably take you a half hour to read, but it's a condensed version of the entire argument for Alberta independence, including rebuttals to common misconceptions about independence. So if you happen to find a Forever Canadian petition gathering station, you can go and ask them these questions. Unfortunately, it's not going to go the way you think it will, because it's just an emotional outburst response that you're going to get, and you won't be able to debate these things, because the only thing that holds water in the conversation about staying in Canada is emotion. Emotion is the only connection that makes any kind of sense to this confederation. But if you're willing to set aside your emotion, look at the facts, and pursue reality, there is only one option, and all paths lead to Alberta independence. So please check out that blog. If you have questions or you think I'm wrong about something, you can reach out to me. If you subscribe to the blog, that allows you to send emails to me as well. So you can say, hey, Chris, I think you're wrong about this. I'll read it, and then I will answer your questions. So that's my friend Thomas Lukaszuk. If you need to know anything about him, just know that he is in bed with Jason Kenney. And I think that's all you really need to know. Jason Kenney is actually doing a fantastic job of coming out of the woodwork and shouldering a lot of insults from people who recognize his role in the COVID fiasco, his selling out the province, his non-conservative values. They don't want anything to do with him, and yet he speaks out anyway. Good for him. Very proud of him for speaking his mind and expressing himself. But I will continue to troll him every chance I get. What else did I want to talk about? That's probably going to be it. I did want to touch a little bit on some questions people had about treaty land and Indigenous rights and do they have a veto on Alberta independence. But you know what? I'm actually going to let you read my blog. It's in there. Probably all the questions you have are answered there. But I'm also working on another paper that's specifically on that topic, because something I've realized is that Alberta independence isn't just it's not just a path to prosperity and independence for people, for Albertans. It's an opportunity for a reset for everybody, including our First Nations brothers and sisters that have suffered hugely under the current system and structure. One thing I will tell you that I've learned in the last 2 weeks, two things actually. Number one, our First Nations people say they have sovereign nations, and that's great and beautiful and everything, but nations of what? Did you know that they don't own the reserves? The reserves are owned by the federal government. The federal government treats Indians in this province like animals, putting them on game reserves. It's absolutely ridiculous. And fighting for something like that to keep it the same is even more ridiculous. That's the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned, and this came from reading some of Clifford Sifton's stuff actually, was when treaties were negotiated from 1876 to 1899, one of the things that was mentioned by the negotiators and by Sifton was that they needed to act quickly and get the treaties signed before the Indians realized the wealth of their land. So I know the treaties weren't negotiated in good faith right from the beginning. The other part of it is if you read the treaties, which I have now, they're very, very clear in Alberta that First Nations ceded all of their land permanently to the Crown, permanently. They didn't get to keep the reserves. They were offered the reserves to use at the pleasure of the federal government. And there is no unceded territory in Alberta, period, full stop, none. None of the treaties, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 9, I can't remember which ones. There's a couple treaty areas that are in, treaty territories that are in both, or a couple provinces. But anyway, it's all ceded. But then you start reading what some of the elders who were connected to people that were negotiating treaties on behalf of First Nations, and they're claiming that there's stuff they talked about that wasn't included in the treaties. Like they wanted to share the land and they wanted 1/8 of resources and things like that. Now, if you consider colonial Europe or colonial England at the time, there was no way that they would ever have agreed to 1/8 resources going to First Nations. Just wouldn't have happened. But somehow they had that idea, whether it's from some sort of deeper cultural, historical thing, the way they operated, or if it was something that was said at the time, we'll never know. But my point is, the elders are claiming that the treaties didn't include all of the things they talked about. So my opinion is that the treaties they haven't done anything good for our First Nations people. And an independent Alberta is an opportunity to redo that, to fix the things that have caused all the problems that we see today. First Nations people on reserve are 3 times more likely to commit suicide. They have more than triple the amount of mental health and addictions issues. Their lifespan is 14 years less. 14 years less than a non-First Nations person. First Nations on reserves graduate 49% of the time. It didn't help anybody. And we have an opportunity to fix it. We have an opportunity to renegotiate and move into prosperity together. A third thing I learned, which I was going to save for the paper, but I was confused why a lot of the writings from First Nations groups mentioned elders. They didn't talk about chiefs. I thought, that's interesting. What's that all about? So I dug into that a little bit further, and I found that there was no such thing as a chief before. That's a European thing. There was elders. There was elders who governed communally with the rest of the group, and they were responsible for passing down knowledge and wisdom through oral tradition and storytelling. That was their job. But when we compartmentalize these people, put them on reserves, we created something called the Indian Act, which set up a structure of governance similar to what we would see in British Parliament with the chief and councillors and then the people. So we set up a power system that was completely foreign to those people. And look how it's worked out. And independent Alberta could fix a lot of these problems because we could elevate people from a place of, subservience and dependence on the federal government to a place where they could prosper, through their own work and dedication to their own outcomes. We could do that. But then you see these treaty chiefs, which is a construct of the English crown, which is weird because they talk about how everything was bad with the English crown, but they keep that part of it. Anyway, they speak out against Alberta independence, say that it's violating their sacred treaty rights. It's not. It doesn't. Absolutely doesn't. The treaties that were signed with the crown, with the federal government, would remain intact if they wanted it. It would be up to them whether they wanted to do something different that hasn't been done before and fix those problems, burn those treaties that have never done anything good for the people, and start fresh together, or not. So why is it that the chiefs are saying that it's a bad idea for the people and it violates the treaty rights? Maybe it's because when the English crown set up the idea of an Indian band, an Indian council, they included something in there in the annual fees paid to the First Nations people. The chiefs got $25, the headmen got $15, members got $5, and in some cases children got $12. So right off the bat, they set up a financial incentive for the chiefs to keep the power that was given to them. Nothing has changed. And now, to make matters worse, we have them speaking out against an opportunity to elevate their people out of poverty, to turn the culture around from the trajectory it's on right now, because the stats aren't good. And Alberta independence could be the game changer for those people. Anyhow, that was a lot more than I wanted to get into. That's kind of the wrap up for this week. Going forward, if you are the kind of person that wants to take action, the first thing that you should be doing is you should be going to www.albertaprosperity.com and you should be booking your bus ticket to the Edmonton Legislature on October 25th. There will be, I think there's 5 or 6 speakers, of which I am one. My friend Jeff Rath will be speaking. My other friend, Dr. Dennis Modry, will be speaking. Who else is there? I hate talking about who's speaking because if I forget someone, then they think that I think they're unimportant, but that's not the case. I'm just forgetful. Anyway, there's a bunch of us speaking, and I actually prepared something this time, which is something I don't usually do. But this is so important. This is such an important moment in Alberta's history. I wanted to make sure that I got everything out that I wanted to say. And I got a lot to say, as you probably already know. So, Alberta Ledge, October 25th. Be there or don't be there and be a loser. If you don't come, you're a loser. Just kidding. You're not. I get it. People are busy. You got things to do. But please, this is very important. So if it's a choice between, I just don't feel like it, or you know what, I'm actually going to pull myself up by my bootstraps and I'm going to go and I'm going to be counted with the Albertans that want to fix these problems, do it. Join us. Be there. While you're at the Alberta Prosperity Project website, buy a membership. Please buy a membership. There's 2 reasons. Number 1, you're counted in the Albertans that are ready and willing to make a change, to do something that's never been done before, and move into a prosperous Alberta instead of a managed decline Canada, which we're in right now. also talk about this in my blog. The other part of it is, as we travel across the province and speak at different events, we have to pay for halls, we have to pay for transportation, all sorts of things. I had to fly up to Manning because I run a business and I can't be away that long. So that's not cheap. Well, driving's not cheap either. But that $20 or $30 for 2 years or $40 for 3 years that you pay for your membership supports those initiatives and helps us do those things. We don't have weird shadowy donors like some other status quo fighters do. So it's important that people who believe in that mission support it. And no, none of us get paid. We all do it on a volunteer basis. So yeah, please do that. Other actions. Next week, I'm going to start working on something big. We're going to need probably, I would say, a minimum of 3,000 volunteers. Now, I know there's I can't remember what the number is, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have signed up with the Alberta Prosperity Project to volunteer for certain initiatives. Well, I want to put something together, and we're going to need a lot of people. It's time to get to work. So watch for that. Yes, that's my son streaking in the background. What? Other action items, individual conversations with your friends, neighbors, and your enemies. The best and most effective way to change someone's mind is for somebody who is already in their circle of trust to have conversations with them where they can relate to them and bypass the emotional response that you would have to a stranger like me. Tell them why you believe in Alberta independence, why you're standing up for this province, why you believe this is something we need to do. Challenge them. When they say negative things about it or present challenges like landlocked or currency or military, those types of things, arm yourself with the information you need that you can find at the albertaprosperityproject.com. You can find it on my blog, and I'm going to keep doing that. But when you have the information, then you can, and you've bypassed the emotional stuff, then you can get the facts out and you can change people's minds. And we need a lot of people for this. So just do it. I'm going to quickly scroll through the comments. I haven't actually looked at all. Oh, Nikki Hurley, one of our most famous contributors. Thank you for continuing to be here for the entire time that I've been podcasting. I love it when I see your comments. Don't always agree, but I am just thrilled that you continue to participate. It's awesome. Nikki says, which one is not tied to politicians? Now, Nikki, I don't know if you're talking about the Alberta Prosperity Project, but the Alberta Prosperity Project, we don't have any politicians. There's some people that are kind of dipping their toes, trying to decide, is that where my time is best spent? Should I become involved in that? But at the moment, we're not politicians. We're just, I'm literally a dirty roughneck turned restaurant owner who bothered to learn about the province confederation and what Alberta independence could mean for me. And, you know, there's other people, kind of the same thing. It's grassroots thing, no politicians. What else do we have? What time? I'm not sure. 2 buses. Yeah, buses. That's awesome that they did that. The event will also be live streamed, so you can catch it on live stream. You can go to, I believe we'll be live streaming it to the Whistle Stop Cafe Facebook page and maybe my personal Facebook page. But if not, you can also find it on freedomcalendar.net. Kerry asks, is there someone on the reserves educating the people on sovereignty benefits to them? No. There's a lot of people on the reserves educating and misinforming people as to why they need to stay in the same structure that is preventing better outcomes for their lives. It's completely opposite. Most mainstream media, the Forever Canadian petition, all of them, they are lying to our First Nations brothers and sisters to keep them where they are, compartmentalized, never going to get out of it. And they're doing that to them to benefit themselves, and it's disgusting. Time of the thing at the ledge, 4 to 6. Again, fact check me, go to the website, check it out, confirm that. And I imagine if you're taking a bus, the bus is not going to be late. So take the bus. You can't be late. They never honored 300 treaties since 1701. That's right. The federal government has not done a very good job honoring treaties. As a matter of fact, at any given time, there's between 300 and 500 active claims against the federal government by First Nations in this country. Why would anybody want to fight for that? Why would anyone want to fight to stay in that? The federal government does settle some of the claims, though. For instance, there was a $1.1 billion cows and plows settlement that was made a few years ago on the heels of Danielle Smith campaigning on the Alberta Sovereignty with the United Canada Act. Interesting, the timing that some of these things are paid out. And then interesting how the chiefs stand up and speak out against things like the Alberta Sovereignty with the United Canada Act. But what do I know? I just pour coffee. Nikki mentions the Statute of Westminster 1931. Please read that. If you haven't read it already, folks, read it. It's very short. It'd take maybe 5-10 minutes to read the entirety of the Statute of Westminster 1931. It did give the provinces sovereign jurisdiction over their resources and wealth and their land. That's it. That statute is being used to support the idea that Canada isn't real and some other things. I've dug into that a lot. It's all malarkey. It will go nowhere, absolutely nowhere. It's not what people are saying. And it's a distraction from the only plausible and probable solution we have for this province, which is to simply stand up and say, we're out, and then do it ourselves. It's nothing. And I don't really want to spend too much time debating that because honestly, it's like poking a dead bird with a stick on the side of the road. It doesn't get you anywhere. I don't know why I picked that. Time to shave the excess fat. Yes, unless you're talking about me, but I am trying to lose a little bit of weight. So it's not just the government that has to trim fat. I know that I have to walk the walk as well. So I'm working on it. The scandals are endless with zero recourse, 100%. How many scandals have we seen out of the Liberal governments in the last 20 years? It has been absolutely insane and zero accountability. But in an independent Alberta with a constitution by the people for the people that outlines how the government may interact with us, not what rights the government are giving us, we could hold politicians accountable. And if they do the things to us that we've seen in the last 5 years, we could put them in jail. Right now, we can't. Specifically cannot sue a politician for doing anything, unless you can prove bad faith, for doing anything in the delegation of his duty or her duty. So you can't even sue Kenny or Dina Hinshaw, even though they acted illegally. But that might change. What else we got here? Someone asked, what's my point? I don't know. I make lots of point. Oh, it's maybe a troll. I like trolls. They're my favorite. Jeff, what are you calling bullshit? Please put it in the comments. I'll scroll down in just a moment and I'll comment on whatever it is you think is bullshit. The executive secretary for the Calgary Board of Education gets paid just over $250,000 a year. Choke on that. Alberta Radio. Yeah, Alberta Radio is good. Rise Up Alberta. Great. Alberta Rising. Great. All great stuff. Check them out on Facebook. Here's one. My niece is currently teaching 34 students, and 1/3 of them are English as a second language. No education assistant. The non-English as a second language students are getting held back because of it. Whose fault is that? Our government said they're going to put $8.1 billion into school infrastructure over the next 5 years. 5 years or 3 years? I can't remember. $8.1 billion to build new schools. Danielle Smith, early on in her tenure as premier, said that this province is going to hit 10 million by 2030. She didn't say that because she wants 10 million. She said that because she's watching what's happening. The floodgates of immigration on the federal level are wide open. 40,000 new students since 2023. And the vast majority of them are not from children being born in Alberta. We are being completely flooded. It takes 2 or 3 years to build a school. How do you expect the government to keep up with that? We can't keep up with it. And you know what happens? Then people like the NDP use that as political fodder to try and win power back from that government, even though it's not their fault. You know what would fix this? An independent Alberta with their own Department of Immigration that could bring in people that align with our values and complement our society and fill the gaps where we need them, rather than wide open and making 34 kids in a classroom the majority of which don't speak English. That is not good for anybody, including the new Canadians. That's not good for kids that don't speak English to be in those situations either. Oh, let's see if, did he say anything? Are you speaking on Saturday, Chris? Yes, I am. What's the difference between Stay in Canada and the APP petition? Very good question. The Forever Canadian petition is what Justice Feasby refers to as a nothing burger. And a nothing burger is something that doesn't do anything for you. So the question is, do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? Now let's look at the outcomes here. It's either yes or no. Let's say that the answer is yes. What happens? Nothing. We're already in Canada. Absolutely nothing happens. Now, on the contrary, the answer is no. Do you agree that Alberta should remain in Canada? And the referendum comes back, no. What happens? Nothing. That's it. Nothing happens. The only thing that happens is you would gauge public support. So when we come back with a 65% no, it's going to show people that, yeah, Albertans are done and we're ready for a real petition. The APP petition question, referendum question, is, do you agree that Alberta should, how does the wording go? Do you agree that Alberta should become its own nation and cease to be a province of Canada? That question has teeth because it says, do you want Alberta out? Yes, we do. And to leave Canada? Yes, we do. That is constitutionally binding. And it will open negotiations with the federal. It'll trigger the Clarity Act. And that will trigger the negotiations with the federal government that may result in secession. So very, very big difference. I think Lukasik just did this as a way to throw a wrench in the gears to slow things down a little bit, but it is what it is, and we work with what we got. No, signing tables at a voting station is not legal, for sure. Do we lose our citizenship if we become independent? No, we don't. Our prime minister holds multiple citizenships. As a Canadian citizen, you cannot lose your citizenship for anything unless you renounce it, period. Same thing with pensions. Your pension is yours. If when Alberta has their own pension plan, if it's within Confederation, the Constitution, which is the supreme law of Canada, says that pension plan jurisdiction is with the province. We participate in the CPP because, unity is our strength or something, or diversity is our strength or something like that. But the Constitution says a province can have their own constitution, their own pension plan, provided it is equal to or better than the current pension plan, the CPP. So within Confederation, it is impossible for Alberta to have their own pension plan and have it be any worse than the CPP. I would argue that it's already impossible for it to be any worse than the CPP, considering it's a 2% average return on your investment, which works out to about minus 4% when you account for inflation. But what do I know? I'm just a burger flipper. So, no, you don't lose your citizenship unless you renounce it. No, you don't lose your pension at all. You can't. You can't within Canada. And if Alberta has their own pension plan, we can actually manage it. Right now, if we don't like how our pension plan is being managed in the CPP, there's nothing we can do about it because we don't have proper representation. We're underrepresented. We're not represented by population. We don't have enough senators. We can't influence the outcome of acts of parliament, and that's what you need to change the CPP. So no, you don't, but you don't lose your pension. If you move to France tomorrow, will you lose your pension? No. If you move to Mexico, do you lose it? No. All of our Canadians that are snowbirds and they live or are part-time in Phoenix, do they lose their pensions? No, they don't. It's yours. You paid for it. It's yours. Period. I do not want Danielle Smith running Alberta if we separate. Well, I don't see why, but whatever. We'd have to have an election anyway. That's another question. What do we do after? Well, Alberta declares independence. The next day, we would have an administrating government because someone's got to keep the lights on and things like that. But we would immediately have a constitutional convention, draft a constitution, outline how the government may act, and then hold elections as per outlined in the Constitution and elect our first government. So Danielle Smith would have to specifically campaign and run to be the president of the new nation of Alberta. She wouldn't just carry over. That's the whole point. I see. I think Jeff's a union guy. That's great. He's asking for proof that unions are destroying your public services. Let's do that. There's quite a bit of that over at Berta Proud Dad. You can check that out if you want. And I guess unions aren't specifically destroying the services, but what they're doing is they're a bloated parasitic draw off an already challenged system. And not only that, but they're not just backing the professionals that they're supposed to represent. They're also trying to align with specific political operatives so that they can get more of their way or more power to themselves or more money to themselves. And it's painfully obvious. All you got to do is open your eyes and look, and you can't miss it. If the Forever Canada petition goes to a referendum, doesn't it have to be a yes or no question? That's true. It is a yes or no question, but as I outlined before, it is a complete nothing burger. Kerry says we could create our own CFIA. No, absolutely not. We couldn't. We could not create our own Canada Food Inspection Agency. We would have an Alberta Food Inspection Agency. But again, we don't have any property rights under the Constitution. Zero. In 1982, Pierre Elliott Trudeau and his government presented a draft constitution that he wanted the provinces to sign. 8 provinces refused to sign because there was no property rights in the Constitution. It was removed. Not there. You don't have property rights in this country, in Canada. You have property rights under the Alberta Bill of Rights, but not under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So 8 provinces said, no, we're not signing this piece of shit because there's no property rights. They ended up making a concession when Pierre Elliott Trudeau agreed to put the notwithstanding clause in there. I mentioned this a little while ago regarding the notwithstanding clause. Mark Carney, the guy who wrote Values, who talks about how we need a Marxist dystopian society to survive, is talking about ignoring or removing the notwithstanding clause from the Constitution. So for all of you who say, no, we can stay in Canada and fix things by changing the Constitution, go ahead, open up the Constitution and see what they do. It's not going to be to our benefit. And that notwithstanding clause will be gone. Gone, gone, gone. It will be gone so long. It'll be gone, gone, gone. Proud member of International Union of Operating Engineers. Cool. That's awesome. Jeff, I get it. You have a different opinion. And I wish I had more time to talk to you about these things tonight. Probably not going to happen, but I'm happy to correspond with you via email or Facebook message or whatever like that. I'd like to hear what you have to say on the subject. Now, going back up to where I was, the 300 treaties. Conservatives don't like unions. That's not true. The Conservatives loved the unions back when it was Jason Kenney's government getting into bed with them. They didn't have a problem with the union at all. I suppose I can see why you would say that, though. Conservatives, in general, maybe dislike unions because we like fiscal responsibility. And what do unions usually ask for? More money, more money, more money, more money. When did the ATA or your union, Jeff, ever say, we want to get rid of the bloat in our organization so we can do things more effectively and benefit our members more? Never have said that. They only say, we want more money, we want more money, we want more money. They never say we want to fix the problems that are plaguing the system right now. That's the problem with Conservatives have with unions. Not only that, but this isn't 1920 New York. We have labor laws, like robust labor laws. We have minimum wage standards. We have legislated wage standards for nurses, doctors, even teachers. So what do we really need the labor unions for? That's a $75 million bloat that we don't need. Oh, speaking of bloat, superintendents. There is a professional regulatory body for superintendents and a union called the something SAS or something like that. Did you know that the superintendents expense their union dues? And when I say expense, I mean it comes out of the tax pot. So the superintendents are supposed to pay union dues to be represented by the union. They don't pay it. They make you pay it. And then that union can do things like political alignment campaigns with political parties they like. They can print NDP biographies in their newsletters and things like that, and you are paying for it. These are the problems that conservatives have with unions, and not the union themselves, but the corruption that comes with a union. Pretty biased nonsense. Well, not sure what to say. No, it's not. But I guess I am biased. I'm biased towards reality. I forego lies and I like truth and reality. So yeah, I'm biased towards truth. Well done. Thank you. Tracy says we need to dig deeper into the school division spending. Anybody can do this. Anybody. Go on your school division's website and you can find the expenses for every single board member, director, and the superintendents. It all has to be listed publicly. Everybody can do this. The other thing you can do, you can phone the division and you can ask them for specific records and receipts. And if they won't give it to you, you can do a FOIP. And the information must be made available to you, but it's online. I remember the pointer stick and the yardstick being used in elementary. Yeah, I remember. Well, I never got that, but I got a paddle once. That was fun. Nothing compared to what I got when I got home, though. Maybe that's probably about it. I said I was going to go, and it's past my bedtime. I got to go, folks. This conversation could really go on all night, but we'll have to come back to it. And again, I'll try and check the comments. Jeff, I'll be specifically watching for some correspondence from you. Would love to hear what you have to say because, you think I'm biased. I think you're advocating for status quo and corruption. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And if we talk, we can actually have a positive outcome. So thank you for participating. And don't go anywhere because I'm going to play one of the best outro videos that's ever been created in the history of podcasting, featuring my cat Stumpy. She was pretty shy. It was her first time being in front of the camera. She wasn't sure how acting was supposed to go, but I think she did really good. And I think you folks will really enjoy it. So thank you very much. Thanks for watching. We'll be back again when I have time. Maybe it won't be before the rally next weekend, October 25th, Edmonton Legislature. Be there. If you support Alberta independence, be there. Actually, if you don't support Alberta independence, be there. At least listen to what we have to say. And if you still don't agree afterwards, fine. You'll get a chance to vote in the referendum, but at least get the information so you can make the proper decision. The worst thing you can do right now is to just say, I'm always going to be Canadian and I'm emotional about this, so I'm not going to look at the facts. And then 15 years down the road, when you're burning your money in the streets and eating your pets and zoo animals, like Venezuela, you're going to be thinking, oh, maybe I should have paid attention and we could have gotten off this path before it got this bad because, I really liked my pet pig. Anyway, good night. See you later. October 25th. Be there or be a loser.